Welcome. If you are not here today, this is how you will get the active listening notes. So again, if you were not here when we did notes the first time, active listening notes is going to be these extra notes that you are putting in the side panels here. So it's things that I am saying, not necessarily on the board or on the slideshow. And you do not need one for every section, just it shouldn't be blank altogether. So the lecture today is all about Renaissance thinkers. So the first one we were talking about, John Locke. He did believe in natural rights, that people should or are born with rights to life, liberty, and property. You can think back to some American documents. This is very similar, had a very big impact on that. He also believed in the social contract theory. This is actually a little bit different than Rousseau, what we were talking about. He's saying government's powers comes from the consent of the governed. And so you can't just force these people to be following you, is what he's saying. And limited government kind of goes hand in hand with that last point. It should protect the rights of the people. And if it is not protecting the rights of the people, you should be allowed to overthrow the government. So pretty radical thinking in a time when a lot of the rulers have absolute power, right? Moving on to Voltaire, we talked about how he believed in this idea of freedom of speech, something a lot of us definitely take for granted now, because it is written into our Constitution, but that people should be able to express their ideas and criticize authorities without being thrown in jail. Very radical for the time he was living in. He also believed in religious tolerance, accepting people's different beliefs, and believed in reason and rationality. So he valued logic and science and criticized superstition. So if you couldn't back it up with evidence, he was going to be more critical of things like that. Moving on to Montesquieu. He was a big believer in the separation of powers, that government should be divided into branches of powers to prevent abuse of power. That is a big reason why our American government is set up into 3 different branches of powers, so that one branch doesn't have absolute power, and there's people to make sure that they aren't abusing the citizens. So that idea also goes into checks and balances. Each branch should have ways to limit the powers of the other, and that rule of law, everyone, including rulers, should follow the same laws. This is kind of going back to what Aristotle was saying, right? In the document that we looked at, no one should be above the law, according to Montesquieu. Now, Rousseau, we obviously did already look at his work. He did believe in general will, best interest of the community should guide decision-making, very much like common interest, as we talked about in one of those Greek documents we looked at. I can't remember if it was Plato or Aristotle. Popular sovereignty, government should come from the people's agreement, kind of democracy, right? And critique of inequality. Again, if you remember, he was really big into taxation, especially of the upper classes, to bring more equality or equity. Denis Diderot, he is going to be the person who makes the encyclopedia, essentially. So the founder of Wikipedia, but way before. Compiling knowledge on various fields to make information more accessible to the general public. Also believed in reason and science, so he did want people to be able to back up the information in his encyclopedia with real evidence. And then promoted thinking based on reason over religion. So we're kind of seeing a big theme like that, away from religion and more towards things that are completely backed up by evidence and proof. Moving on to Adam Smith, really going to be a very influential economic thinker, believed in economic liberalism, supported minimal government interference in markets, kind of evolves into this idea of laissez-faire, where you let things be. Senior year, you will be learning about that in economics, maybe if you take my class. Invisible hand theory believed competition and self-interest benefit the economy. So not just giving out these handouts. People are going to be working hardest when it has their own self-interest, when they can benefit themselves. and they should be competing against people because that will, in his idea, create the best product. And division of labor, breaking tasks into specialized parts, boosts productivity. So kind of this idea like an assembly line, right? Someone gets really good at a specific job, they can do that job way faster than anyone else. So they just keep doing that job rather than make the entire product. All right, moving on to Mary Wollstonecraft. So this is going to be a big women's rights leader. It's coming before even first wave feminism, as you can see in the 1700s, advocated for equal rights and especially for educational opportunities for women, because that was still very restricted to almost only men ever. Gender equality, so she's going to fight against societal norms that placed women in lower positions, and critique of oppression, challenge traditional ideas that limited women's potential. So these are all things we're probably more familiar with now, but if it weren't for people like her laying the groundwork, who knows where we would be, and who knows where our gender equity, where that would be right now, modern day. And the last leader we are looking at is Thomas Paine. So he is going to be very influential for our next unit when we do talk about revolutions. For the American independence, he did urge colonists to break free from British rule. There's going to be this very famous work called Common Sense that hopefully next year in US history you do learn about. Republican ideals, he did support representative government and the power of the people. Again, United States, we are in a democratic republic. So the people choose, that's the democracy, but the republic is they are representing us, right? We vote on people who are supposed to hold our interests at heart and vote on that. And lastly, critique of monarchy, question the legitimacy of hereditary rulers. A big reason why he urged the Americans to break free of a British ruler when he's across the sea. So when you finish all those notes, make sure you are doing your summary, and then you will have an exit ticket tomorrow. I just have not made it yet.